The slave ship landed on a world made of black glass, pressed her face against the small window and saw towers that touched the clouds. Everything was dark and sharp, like the teeth of some giant beast. This was where she would spend the rest of her life. She was 24 years old. 3 months ago, she had been a nurse on a human colony near the edge of known space. Then came. They took everyone young and healthy. They left the old and the sick behind. Did not know if her parents were still alive. She tried not to think about it. The guards pushed the humans off the ship, stumbled on the ramp and almost fell. A soldier laughed at her. He was 8 feet tall with scales the color of burnt copper. His wings folded against his back like a cloak made of leather. His eyes were yellow with black slits like a snake. They were the rulers of 3 galaxies. They could fly through space without ships. They could breathe fire hot enough to melt steel. They lived for thousands of years. To them, humans were insects, useful for cleaning and cooking and nothing else. Was sold that same day. A fat merchant looked at her teeth and her hands. He asked if she was sick. She said no. He paid 12 credits for her. That was the price of a human life in this empire. They took her to a palace made of obsidian stone. It sat on a mountain above a city of millions. The merchant told her she was lucky. She would serve in the house of Lord, the Dragon King of the sector. He was the most powerful in 17 star systems. He had ended the Nebula Wars. He had killed 10,000 enemies with his own claws. Did not feel lucky. She felt tired and scared and alone. The head steward was unnamed. He looked at like she was dirt on his floor. He gave her a gray uniform and a bucket of cleaning tools. He told her the rules. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not look at your masters. Do not enter the West Wing. Do not touch anything with your bare hands. There were other humans in the palace, counted 11 of them. They worked in silence. They did not smile. They had been here for years and the light had gone out of their eyes. Her first week was hard. She scrubbed floors until her knees bled. She cleaned windows so high that one fall would kill her. She ate cold rice and drank water that tasted like metal. At night, she slept in a room with no windows, on a bed that was just a mat on the floor. She saw Lord once. He walked through the main hall with his advisors. He was taller than any she had seen. His scales were deep blue, almost black. His eyes burned like white fire. He moved like a king, like someone who had never been told no in his entire life. He did not look at her. He did not look at any of the humans. They were invisible to him. On her 8th day, gave her a new assignment. She was to clean the East Wing. The other servants looked at her with something like pity. The East Wing was old and dusty. No one had cleaned it properly in years. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling. The lights flickered and buzzed. It felt like a place that had been forgotten on purpose. Learned why on her 2nd day there. She heard crying. It came from behind a large door at the end of a hallway. She knew she should not investigate. She knew the rules, but the crying sounded young. It sounded hurt. She opened the door. The room was large but empty. No decorations, no warmth, just a bed, a chair, and a window with the curtains closed. And on the floor, trying to pull himself toward that window, was a young. He was small for his kind, maybe the size of a human teenager. His scales were pale gray, not the rich colors of healthy. His legs were thin and twisted, dragging behind him uselessly. His wings were tiny, like a baby bird that never grew up. He was crying because he could not reach the window. He had fallen from his bed, and no one had come to help him. Stood frozen, she knew who this was. Everyone knew. Prince, the cursed son of the Dragon King. He had been born broken. His legs did not work. His wings would never fly. Among the strength was everything. A child who could not fight, who could not fly, who could not hunt was worthless. Lord had hidden his son away in this forgotten wing. The servants refused to touch him. They believed his curse would spread to them. Looked up at her. His eyes were silver, beautiful and sad. He stopped crying. He looked ashamed that she had seen him like this. did not think. She walked across the room, bent down, and lifted him in her arms. He was lighter than she expected. His body was weak from years of not moving. She could feel his bones through his scales. He was like a bird, hollow and fragile. She carried him to the window and opened the curtains. Outside, a nebula painted the sky in purple and gold. It was the most beautiful thing had ever seen. Stared at it, he had not seen the sky in months. He looked at her with confusion. No one had touched him in 6 years. No one had helped him. No one had treated him like he mattered. "Why?" he asked. His voice was soft, unused to speaking. Placed him gently on a chair by the window. She smiled at him. "Because you wanted to see the stars," she said. She did not know it yet, but that simple act would change everything. The news spread through the palace like fire. A human had touched the prince. A human had lifted royalty in her arms. It was unthinkable. It was disgusting. It was punishable by death. Came to the east wing with 4 guards. His face was twisted with anger. He grabbed by the arm and dragged her through the hallways. The other servants watched in silence. Some looked scared. Some looked relieved it was not them. They brought her to the throne room. It was a vast space with pillars of black stone and a ceiling so high it disappeared into shadow. At the far end sat a throne carved from a single piece of crystal, and on that throne sat Lord, the Dragon King. He looked down at like she was an insect that had crawled into his home. His white eyes showed no emotion. His claws tapped slowly on the arm of his throne. Through to the floor. She hit the stone hard. Her knees screamed with pain. "This creature touched your son," said. His voice shook with disgust. She put her human hands on the prince. She lifted him like he was a common thing. "The law is clear. She must die." The guards moved closer, could feel the heat coming off their bodies, ran hot like furnaces. One of them could burn her to ash in seconds. She was going to die, she knew it. But she was not sorry for what she had done. The boy had been on the floor, crying, forgotten. She would do it again. Lord raised one claw. The room went silent. "Where was my son when this happened?" he asked. His voice was deep and cold like a winter wind. Hesitated. "In his chambers, my lord." "And why was he on the floor?" "Silence." "Answer me." Looked uncomfortable. He glanced at the guards. None of them would meet his eyes. "He fell from his bed, my lord." The servants did not assist him. Lord's eyes narrowed. Did not or would not. More silence. The air in the throne room grew heavy. Could feel the pressure building like a storm about to break. "How long was my son on the floor before this human found him?" Swallowed. "We do not know, my lord. Perhaps several hours." Something changed in Lord's face. It was small, just a flicker, but saw it. Pain, shame, guilt. For just one moment the Dragon King looked like a father who had failed his child. He stood from his throne. He was enormous, nearly 10 feet tall. His wings spread behind him, blocking out the light from the windows. He walked down the steps toward. She forced herself to look up. If she was going to die, she would die with her eyes open. But Lord did not kill her. He stopped a few feet away and studied her. His white eyes moved across her face like he was trying to understand something. "Why did you help him?" he asked. His voice was steady. She did not know where the courage came from. "Because he needed help, my lord, and no one else would give it. He is cursed. Touching him brings bad fortune." "I do not believe in curses. I believe in kindness." A murmur went through the guards, a human talking back to the Dragon King. It was unheard of. It was madness. Lord stared at her for a long moment. The throne room was so quiet that could hear her own heartbeat. Then he turned and walked back to his throne. "Let her live," he said. Looked shocked. "My lord, the law." "I am the law." Lord sat down. His voice was final. "The human will not be punished. She will continue to serve in the East Wing. She will attend to the prince." The guard stepped back, opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. No one argued with the Dragon King twice. Was taken back to the East Wing. Her hands were shaking. She could not believe she was still alive. She did not understand why the king had spared her. That night she went to check on Prince. He was in his bed, but he was not sleeping. He was looking at the window, at the nebula beyond. "I heard what happened," he said without turning around. "You almost died because of me." Walked to his bedside. "I am still here." "Why did you do it? Why did you help me?" His voice was small, broken. "Everyone says I am cursed. Everyone says touching me will bring ruin. My own father cannot look at me. The servants would rather let me rot on the floor than come near me. But you are a human, a slave. You have nothing. Why would you risk everything for someone like me?" Sat on the edge of his bed. She looked at his thin legs, his small wings, his sad silver eyes. She saw a child who had been told his whole life that he was worthless. She saw herself in a way. Both of them thrown away by a universe that did not care. "On my world," she said softly, "we believe that how you treat the weakest people shows who you really are. You are not cursed, Prince. You are just different, and different is not the same as broken." His eyes filled with tears. He tried to hide them, but he could not. No one had ever said anything like that to him before. No one had ever told him he was not broken. His whole life, he had believed he was a mistake, a stain on his father's honor. Reached out and took his hand. His scales were cool and smooth. He flinched at first, then relaxed. Human warmth seeped into his skin. "I do not know why your father spared me," she said, "but I am here now, and I am not going to leave you alone again." Outside, the nebula burned with ancient light, and in a forgotten room, in a forgotten wing, something new began to grow, something that would shake an empire to its core. Hope. 3 months passed. The East Wing was no longer a place of dust and silence, had cleaned every corner. She had opened every curtain. Light poured through the windows now, painting the dark stone floors with gold. But the biggest change was Prince. Taught him exercises she had learned as a nurse. Simple things at first, moving his arms, stretching his back, building strength in the parts of his body that still worked. The doctors had given up on him years ago. They said he would never improve, but human medicine was different. Human medicine was about trying, even when hope seemed lost. Every day grew a little stronger. His arms, once thin as sticks, began to show muscle. His chest filled out. His voice grew louder. He started to smile. She also brought him books. Human books smuggled from the servant quarters. Stories of heroes who faced impossible odds. Tales of people who lost everything and still found a way to win. Read them all. He read about humans who climbed mountains with no legs. He read about humans who painted masterpieces without hands. He read about a species that refused to give up, no matter what the universe threw at them. "How do they do it?" he asked one evening. "Humans are so weak, so fragile, you live such short lives. How do you keep fighting?" Smiled, "Because we have to. We do not have scales or fire or wings. All we have is each other. So we learn to be stubborn. We learn to never stop trying." Looked at his own useless legs. For the first time, he did not feel only shame. He felt something else, determination. Word of the changes reached Lord. The servants whispered. The advisors gossiped. The Dragon King heard that his forgotten son was laughing again. He heard that a human slave was carrying the prince through the gardens, showing him flowers he had never seen. He heard that was growing stronger. One night Lord went to the East Wing. He did not announce himself. He simply walked through the shadows like a ghost. He found helping with his exercises. The prince was lying on his back, lifting weights with his arms. His face was red with effort. Sweat dripped down his pale scales, but he was smiling. He was alive in a way he had not been in years. Watched from the doorway, he saw his son. Really saw him, not as a curse or a shame or a failure, just as a boy trying his best. Something cracked inside the Dragon King. A wall he had built long ago. A wall made of pride and fear and the expectations of his people. He turned and left before anyone saw him. But that night, he did not sleep. The next morning, he summoned. She stood before him in the throne room, small and fragile compared to the giant sitting above her. But her eyes did not look away. She met his gaze like an equal. It infuriated him. It impressed him. "Why do you care for my son?" he demanded. "He is not your blood, he is not your kind. You gain nothing from helping him, so why?" Took a breath. She knew her next words might be her last, but she had never been good at staying silent. "On Earth," she said, "we have a saying. The measure of a society is how it treats its weakest members. Your son is not weak, my lord. He has been abandoned. There is a difference." The throne room went dead quiet. No one spoke to the Dragon King this way. No one challenged him. No one told him he was wrong. Lord's claws dug into the arms of his throne. Smoke curled from his nostrils. For a moment, thought she had finally gone too far. But then the Dragon King did something unexpected. He looked away. "I had a brother once," he said quietly. "He was born with a twisted spine. He could not fly. Our father killed him on the day he was born. He said it was mercy. He said it was the way." Said nothing, she just listened. "When was born, I could not do it. I could not kill my own son, so I did something worse. I hid him. I pretended he did not exist. I told myself it was for his own good. I told myself he was better off forgotten than dead." His voice cracked. The mighty Dragon King, terror of 17 star systems, sounded like a broken man. "I was a coward," he whispered. "I saved his life but took everything else from him." Stepped closer. It was dangerous, it was foolish, but she did it anyway. "It is not too late," she said softly. "He is still alive. He is still your son. You can still be his father." Lord looked at her. His white eyes were wet. Dragons could cry, had not known that. "How?" he asked. "How do I fix what I have broken?" "You start by seeing him, not as a curse, not as a mistake, just as that is all he has ever wanted." The Dragon King sat in silence for a long time. The weight of years pressed down on him. All the guilt, all the shame, all the wasted time. Finally he spoke. "Bring him to me." That evening, for the first time in 6 years, Prince sat in his father's presence. Lord did not speak much. Neither did, but they sat together, watching the nebula through the great windows of the palace. And that was enough. That was a beginning. The story spread across the empire like wildfire. In every sector, in every system, people whispered about the Dragon King and his cursed son. They whispered about a human slave who had dared to show kindness. They whispered about change. Some laughed. They called Lord weak. They said he had been corrupted by a human insect. They said the great Dragon King had lost his mind. But others saw something different. Young who had always questioned the old ways. Mothers who had lost children to the cruel traditions. Scientists who believed that worth should not be measured by strength alone. They saw hope. Lady was one of them. She was a noble from a distant system, wealthy and powerful in her own right. She had spent decades quietly fighting against the worst parts of culture. When she heard about Prince, she had to see for herself. She arrived at the palace on a day when the twin suns burned bright in the sky. Lord welcomed her with respect. She was too important to ignore. He did not know she was there to judge him. Asked to see the prince, hesitated but agreed. He led her to the east wing, where and were in the garden. What saw stopped her in her tracks. Prince was moving, not walking but gliding across the stone paths in a strange machine. It was a chair with wheels, powered by levers that pushed with his arms. The design was simple, almost ugly compared to technology, but it worked. Had built it. She had used scraps from the palace kitchens, old gears from broken machines, metal from thrown-away furniture. Human engineering. Primitive, they would say, but it gave a crippled prince the ability to move on his own. Watched race down the garden path, laughing. His silver eyes were bright with joy. He spun the chair in circles, showing off for his father, who stood nearby with something that looked almost like a smile. Tears rolled down Scaled face. "This is what we could be," she whispered. "This is what we have forgotten." But not everyone was moved by the story. In the dark corners of the Empire, powerful plotted against the Dragon King. Lord was younger brother. He had always wanted the throne. He had always believed that was too soft, too merciful. Now he had proof. The Dragon King was keeping a crippled heir and listening to a human slave. It was disgusting. It was an opportunity. Gathered his allies, old warriors who believed in the pure ways, nobles who feared that change would cost them their power, priests who preached that the weak must be cut away like diseased flesh. They made their plan: kill the prince, kill the human, blame it on an accident, would grieve but he would recover, and would be there ready to guide him back to the proper path. The assassins came at night. There were 5 of them, trained killers who could move without sound. They crept through the palace, past sleeping guards, toward the east wing. Their claws were coated with poison. One scratch would be enough. But someone had warned. A young servant named Bora, a girl who had watched care for the prince. She did not agree with the old ways. She did not think humans were worthless, and she would not let them die. Woke to Bora's urgent whisper, "Assassins coming, run." There was no time to call for help, no time to wake the guards, grabbed from his bed and ran. The prince was heavier now, stronger from months of exercise, but carried him anyway. Through the dark hallways of the east wing, downstairs she had scrubbed 100 times, through passages that no noble would ever use, paths meant for servants and slaves. The assassins followed. They were fast, faster than any human could hope to be. Their yellow eyes glowed in the darkness. Their poison claws clicked against the stone. Ran until her lungs burned. She ran until her legs screamed for rest. She held tight against her chest and did not stop. The prince looked up at her face. He saw the fear there, but also the determination. She was not going to let him die. This small, fragile human was fighting for him with everything she had. "Put me down," he said. "Save yourself, I am just a burden." "Never," gasped. "You are never a burden." They burst out of a service door into the main courtyard. The twin moons hung overhead, casting silver light on the black stone. And there, waiting, was Lord with 50 soldiers. Bora had not only warned, she had warned the king. The assassins emerged behind them and froze. They were surrounded, caught. Lord stepped forward and his rage was terrible to see. Fire leaked from his mouth with every breath. His wings spread wide, blocking out the moons. "Brother," he said, his voice like thunder, "I know who sent you." The assassins were taken. They confessed everything. Lord was arrested that same night, dragged from his bed in chains. The next morning, Lord called a gathering of the entire court. Every noble, every advisor, every servant stood in the great hall. And there, in front of them all, the Dragon King embraced his son. He held tight, not caring who watched, not caring what they thought. He had almost lost him. He had almost lost everything because of his silence and his shame. "This is my son," declared, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "He is not cursed. He is not broken. He is a prince of the empire, and anyone who threatens him threatens me." The hall was silent. Then slowly Lady began to clap. Others joined her. Not everyone, but enough. Enough to show that something had shifted. Enough to show that change was possible. Stood in the shadows, watching. She was exhausted, bruised, barely able to stand. But she was smiling. The empire would never be the same. 1 year later, the Imperial Senate gathered for the most important speech in a generation. Representatives from 17 star systems filled the great chamber. Nobles sat in their ancient seats, wearing robes of silk and gold. Holographic screens broadcast the event to trillions across 3 galaxies. Prince entered the chamber in his chair. It was not the simple machine had built from scraps. It was new now, crafted by the finest engineers in the Empire, beautiful and powerful. But the design was still human, had insisted on that. He rolled to the center of the floor and looked up at the assembly. 1 year ago, these same nobles had called him cursed. They had whispered that he should have been killed at birth. Now they watched him with something close to respect. Behind him stood. She wore the formal robes of a royal advisor, deep blue with silver trim. The first human to ever hold such a title. Some nobles still hated her for it, but none of them dared say so out loud. Began to speak. "I was born broken," he said. His voice was strong now, filled with the confidence he had found over the past year. "That is what everyone told me. My legs do not work. My wings will never fly. By tradition I should not exist. I am a mistake, a curse, a shame upon my father's name." The chamber was silent. Every eye was fixed on the young prince. "But I am here, I am alive, and I am here because of one person, a human, a slave, someone who our laws say is worth less than the dirt beneath our feet. She saw me lying on the floor, forgotten by everyone, and she lifted me up. She carried me when I could not walk. She gave me hope when I had none. She showed me that worth is not measured by strength or wings or fire. Worth is measured by what you do for others." He paused and looked at. She smiled back at him, her eyes bright with tears. "I stand before you today to ask for change. Not because change is easy, not because our traditions are worthless, but because we can be better. We can be more than warriors and conquerors. We can be kind. We can be fair. We can build an empire that does not throw away its children because they are different." The chamber erupted in whispers. Some nobles looked angry, others looked thoughtful. A few, like Lady, were openly crying. "I ask the Senate to consider a new law. A law that grants basic rights to humans in the sector. A law that says they are not property. A law that treats them as people." The whispers grew louder. This was unthinkable. This was revolution. But then Lord stood from his seat at the back of the chamber. The Dragon King walked down the aisle, his blue-black scales gleaming in the light. The noise died instantly. No one spoke when the Dragon King moved. He reached his son and placed one massive claw on his shoulder. "I support this law," said. His voice filled the chamber without effort. 1 year ago I was a different creature. I had abandoned my own son because I was afraid of what others would think. I let him suffer in darkness because I was too proud to see him as he truly was. A human taught me what it means to be a father. A human showed me that true strength is not in our fire or our wings. It is in our hearts. He looked at. "I owe her a debt I can never repay, but I can honor her by changing our laws, by building a better empire for the next generation. That is what I intend to do." The vote was held that same day. It was close. Many nobles voted against it, but enough voted yes. The law passed. Humans in the sector were no longer property. They were citizens. It was a small change in a vast empire, just one sector out of hundreds, but it was a crack in the wall, a beginning. That night sat in the garden of the East Wing. The nebula burned overhead, the same view she had shown on that first day. So much had changed since then. She was no longer a slave. She had a title, a room with windows, food that was warm. But she still came here every evening. This place felt like home. Footsteps approached, heavy footsteps that shook the ground slightly with each step. Lord sat down beside her. Even sitting, he towered over her like a mountain. They were silent for a long moment, watching the stars. "I have conquered 17 systems," said finally. "I have killed more enemies than I can count. I have ruled for 300 years. I thought that made me powerful. Waited. But I could not do what you did." His voice was soft, almost gentle. "I could not see my own son. I could not lift him up when he fell. I could not give him hope." He turned to look at her. His white eyes, once so cold, were warm now. "You are the strongest creature I have ever met, and you have no scales, no fire, no wings. How is that possible?" Smiled, "Humans are stubborn," she said. "We do not know how to give up." Let out a sound that might have been a laugh. "Then perhaps we have much to learn from your kind." He did something then that no dragon king had ever done. He bowed his head to a human, a true bow, deep and respectful. "Thank you," he said, "for saving my son, for saving me." Across the empire the story spread. They called it the moment everything changed. The moment a dragon bowed to a human. The moment an empire began to see that strength was not everything. Looked up at the nebula, at the ancient light that had traveled millions of years to reach her eyes. She thought about her home, her family, all the things she had lost. She thought about the future, about all the things that might still be possible. She was still small, still fragile, still human. But she had changed the universe anyway. And somewhere out there, among the trillions of stars, other humans were watching, learning, hopping. Their time was coming.